So Hung Jury is the Nightfall reward for this week, dropping from the Saber Nightfall Strike, which is actually perfect. We've got Vault of Glass coming this Saturday, and I would love to bring Hung Jury into that day one raid. Today, guys, we're going to go over exactly how to get Hung Jury, what roles to be looking for, as well as its unique traits that are found on this weapon. Granted, we will have a more extensive review of this gun either later tonight or first thing tomorrow, where we go over all the god rolls. We just have to essentially get those rolls first. Now, before we even get into the Nightfall guide, let's just talk about the rolls real quick for this scout rifle. This is a 180 round per minute scout rifle, and probably the first thing you notice is that's right, Firefly is on this weapon. Yes, despite this being a kinetic scout rifle, it can still roll with Firefly. And if you notice here, Firefly not only creates an AoE explosion, which by the way is solar, but simultaneously it increases the reload speed of your weapon when landing a precision kill. Think of this almost as like Outlaw and Dragonfly had a baby. Now the reload speed is actually not the same as like Outlaw's reload speed, but fellas, you can just combine that with rapid hit and voila, you got damn near instantaneous reload happening alongside that explosion. Again, that's the PvE role that I'm looking for. The PvP role, though, that I would suggest that I think is going to work out perfectly, and I'm still trying to track down some folks that may have already gotten this trait on their scout rifle, and that's actually box breathing. This is the role I want to bring inside of PvP. Essentially, aiming this weapon for a short period will grant bonus range and precision damage. Now, it resets after the first shot, or when you exit out of your zoom. Regardless, though, box breathing allows this scout rifle to 3-tap, which, yes, you guessed it right. This is essentially No Feelings 2.0, one of the few scout rifles that could hang, as it had that 0.67 time to kill value. The same thing applies here with Hung Jury. Again, we'll be reviewing this weapon more extensively, going over perks like Heating Up, Surplus, One for All, Box Breathing, Adrenaline Junkie, all those things. I just kind of wanted to shake the bacon at you real quick to show you why it is you should go after this scout rifle. Now, as far as the Nightfall goes, yes, Saber Strike is the Nightfall that is dropping this weapon. Now, I've stated in the past that I truly felt like the overall drop rates for Master is substantially better than Legend. Legend's easier, but even though both of these state that the Nightfall weapon is a common drop, Master to me is just more common, which is why today's guide is going to center around the Master version of this Nightfall. So the modifiers for this week, you do have Arachno, where Fallen Vandals spawn a web mine at their feet, Overload Champions, Barrier Champions, Togetherness, which is an extremely annoying modifier. Base health regeneration is reduced if near another player, health regeneration is increased. Very annoying, which for the most part, I guess you're always staying grouped together in Nightfalls, but if you do get out of proximity of one another, you'll notice that your health regeneration just stops. We also have Match Game, Champions Mob, so you have additional champions, as well as Saber Protocol, which increases incoming solar and environmental damage, so I highly advise having concussive dampeners on, maybe even solar resist. Everything in here in this Nightfall has shrapnel launchers, and they will shred the piss out of you. Now, this Nightfall, I wanted to get a little crazy, considering that I just reviewed Warmind's Decree. I wanted to see, could Warmind's Decree actually be utilized in high-level PvE content like Master Nightfalls? Of course, the ultimate test will be here in a month when we actually go into Grandmaster Nightfalls. Turns out it can. Essentially, guys, my build today is centering around Warmind's Decree, where Void Splash damage, final blows have a chance to create Warmind cells. Somebody noted in today's video that this could only be applied to your class item. Not the case. This can be applied to any armor piece in that final activity mod. Now, the things that are dipping into Warmind's Decree, one of them is my Blinding Grenades Truth Teller grenade launcher, which is fantastic in all activities, but especially in Nightfalls. Even though this can't blind champions, it does blind all the other enemies, even majors. So any of those enemies that are rushing you, Blinding Grenades will lock them in place. On top of that, this role comes with Demolitionist, which synergizes perfectly here with the exotic Controverse Hold, essentially stating with Chaotic Exchanger, resist incoming damage while charging your Void Grenade with Chaos Accelerant, Feed the Void, or Handheld Supernova. Charged Void Grenades return a random amount of grenade energy on a hit. That's per hit, by the way. When combining this with Top Tree on the Voidwalker subclass, you've got a lot of things synergizing here. First up, Chaos Accelerant allows you to overcharge your grenade, making it deadlier, have a wider AoE, and last longer. This is is fantastic for vortex grenades. On top of that, Bloom allows your void ability kills to cause enemies to explode. All of these things that are taking place, whether it's from Truth Teller, vortex grenades, and Controverse Hope, or even our own super, everything here is giving you the possibility to spawn a Warmind cell with Warmind's Decree. It's fantastic, some of the best synergy I've ever used, and it works great here in these Nightfalls. Now, like we mentioned this morning when going over Warmind cells, one of the best combinations for massive explosions is, of course, Wrath of Rasputin, Rage of the Warmind, as well as Global Reach. But a final mod that I was actually experimenting with was actually this void-based Warmind cell mod, Warmind's Protection, where you take reduced damage from enemies that are near Warminds. I actually went back and forth between that one as well as Power of Rasputin. This Power of Rasputin actually gives you a weapon damage bonus against enemies that are near Warmind cells. Now, these void mods are so good, especially when combined with Global Reach, because it actually extends not just the lethal explosions that we talk about so much with Warmind cells, but also the effects that you just saw right there, whether it's suppression, whether it's reduction in damage from those enemies within the Warmind cell radius, or the increase in damage against enemies within those Warmind cells. Global Reach is extending all of these things, and if you want, simply shooting a Warmind cell with the combination of Rage of the Warmind as well as Wrath of Rasputin, that will spawn another Warmind cell when it gets a kill. Now, the final mod that I want you to bring in this Nightfall, especially if you're rocking grenade launchers like I am, is of course Breach and Clear. We haven't individually reviewed this mod, but this is hands down one of the best mods in the game. Essentially, when using a grenade launcher, damaging a boss, damaging a champion, or breaking a combatant shield, reloads your stowed weapons and causes the combatant to take increased damage for a short duration. Now, I think it's somewhere around like 30% debuff from simply applying damage with a grenade launcher. And you'll actually see your enemies, they'll be coated in like this purple icky to showcase that yes, the enemy is debuffed, so now you can go to Pound Town. I combined this though with Anarchy and it was perfect. So when it came to doing damage to champions, this absolutely shredded. In combination with Truth Teller, multiple ways here to apply this debuff, and yes, it also gives my teammates the debuff as well. This is a really good mod, guys. I highly suggest at least one of you to rock it on your fire team. Now, my kinetic weapon that I was using, considering that there was overload champions as well as barrier champions in this Nightfall, I was just specking for barriers. Bombad was actually specking for overloads, and Les was actually rocking a combination of Ariana's Vow with a hand cannon for overload champions. Unfortunately, we don't have things like sniper barrier this season, but I gotta say, guys, one of my favorite weapons for PvE right now, especially for this build, is this Chroma Rush. This is by no means a god roll, but Chroma felt really good dealing with barrier champions. On top of that, Wellspring was helping me so much with the combination of Demolitionist on my grenade launcher. Everything here is synergizing to give me more and more vortex grenades, thus more Warmind cells. Now, as far as this Nightfall goes, again, if you want to just run this Nightfall on the lower difficulties, Legend or less, that's completely fine. I just find the Master version to be more rewarding, plus it's a nice little challenge. On top of that, make sure you are rocking the Prosperity Activity mod for Vanguard, as this should increase the likelihood of you getting the weapon drop. But as far as the Nightfall itself goes, placement is kind of everything with this Nightfall, right? Where you place yourself and stack your enemies really makes all the difference here. And I know in the past in Nightfalls, we've kind of gone a more defensive strategy, Ursa Furiosa, and I would say that's still a great way to get through this Nightfall. And it definitely could have worked here. Again, though, we've kind of taken a more offensive strategy where we essentially just try to kill everything before it can kill us. I would say, though, if you are struggling or if your team is struggling, have someone rock Ursa Furiosa, especially with Breach and Clear. Again, Breach is a debuff. Ursa Furiosa, when shooting through that banner shield, is a buff. So you're getting the best of both worlds. So even though you're seeing us rocking double Chaos Reach and a Nova Bomb, you can 100% either rock a Well of Radiance or rock an Ursa Furiosa Titan. Sure, it may add on a few more minutes, but at least you'll get secure runs. The good thing about Master Nightfalls, though, where it differs from Grandmasters, is if you all wipe, it doesn't send you back to orbit. Now, these two rooms right here, leading up to the boss, these are probably the most challenging room. Like, the earlier room is pretty challenging, that first room you drop down into, but this room right here can get pretty chaotic. If you can possibly lock the enemies all right there in the doorway, this makes this room a lot easier. Opening up with your supers, clearing out ads. I would actually drop a vortex grenade over there, then proceed to just unload, breach, and clear my grenade launchers. And the beautiful thing about blinding grenades and vortex grenades is when you blind an enemy, they'll literally just get blinded and just stand right there in your vortex grenade. It's fantastic for locking those enemies in place. Now, this room leading up to the boss has a lot of champions here. You have a barrier champion here, as well as a number of overload low champions. Again, this is where like Controverse Hold was benefiting me so much. Like the only way it could be better is if we had Oppressive Darkness right now. But essentially throwing those grenades down one after another, overcharging them, saved us so much ammo as I didn't have to rely on Anarchy to get the kills on these champions. So if you are gonna rock this build that I'm rocking, don't sit on those grenades. I was rocking somewhere around like tier 9 discipline, but it's Controverse Hold that was granting me my grenade energy back. Now the boss room itself, the boss will spawn there in the middle and you'll have 3 damage phases. The first and second one will be a quarter of its health. It'll retreat after each quarter and then proceed to spawn a barrier champion in the middle. You probably see us crouching a lot right here on the side of these stairs and sitting in a rift. Yeah, the boss can still one bang you. So I highly advise sitting up there up against the stairs and just hide. Deal with ads that are all coming out, all the different shanks, and then proceed to look at the champion together. But be careful peeking out too far, as the boss, even while it's in its little shield there, it can still one bang you. Now the second phase is essentially the exact same thing, but upon reaching half of its health and dealing with that next champion, this is when it's time to just absolutely destroy this boss. And we just unload everything we got. Essentially the same concept we've done in the previous seasons, even for Grandmaster Nightfalls, with a combination of Breach, which yes, does increase your super damage, or at least I was told it increases your super damage, 2 Chaos Reaches, a Nova Bomb, and a lot of other things. You should insta-kill this boss, even on Master, and we were roughly around like 1315 to 1320 power. So we're definitely low, like lower than like the recommended 1340 power. But I do believe it's definitely still worth doing Master, guys. I just find that the loot drops are more consistent. I wasn't necessarily high enough level last week. We only did like 1 Master run of the Glassway Strike, and I didn't even get a single plug last week on all of our Legend runs, which was such a shame. That's a fantastic fusion rifle. But don't sleep on Hung Jerry, guys. It's a fantastic scout. It's got some great potential with some wonderful rolls. We're gonna be testing all of these things, guys, so be looking out for our review. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.